I do not dispute at all that people see things or that they imagine that they're seeing things. What I object to is the interpretation of what they're seeing being spaceships.
I can't claim 100% that these things I'm photographing are extraterrestrials or what, but I do know they are what I actually photographed and what I saw with my eyes.
Are UFOs really extraterrestrial, or are there rational explanations for the phenomenon in events closer to home? In this final program of the series, we put the best available evidence for UFOs to the test. Unidentified flying objects have a compelling attraction for anyone who has experienced them, directly or indirectly. In the 1960s, Sir Peter Horsley carried out his own private investigation.
I didn't believe or disbelieve in them. I was just inquiring into them. I was inquiring into them because there were an awful lot of reports around at the time, and because there were aircrew, I suppose, pilots and what have you.
As an RAF fighter pilot who eventually rose to the rank of Air Marshal at the Ministry of Defense, Peter Horsley was uniquely placed to know whether the UFO phenomenon has any substance to it. Early in his career, when he was a young equerry at Buckingham Palace, he became interested in UFOs.
I was working in the palace at the time, and we all discussed it. Prince Philip, General Browning, we all discussed it, sometimes jokingly, sometimes quite seriously. And I think Prince Philip was very open-minded about the whole subject. And I suggested one day that I should do a little research into it. He was absolutely fine. He said, don't bring any adverse publicity on the palace, obviously. Don't become a crank about it. You know, go ahead, inquire into it. The Fighter Command rang me up and said, we have a case here with a crew of a vampire night fighter who've seen an unidentified flying object flying right over them. And I then went to Westmoreland, spoke to the station commander, and he introduced me to these two. And they said they were at 20,000 feet. They saw this object approaching. It was circular, it had bright lights around it, and it went over the top of them at a vast speed, at about 1,000 miles an hour. And when I got back, I checked up, and the radar had picked it up as well. There were many reports.
While there are plenty of UFO reports, there's an acute shortage of tangible evidence. But listening to leading ufologists, you might not think so.
There are over 4,000 cases that we have in our database of these things landing and leaving some physical event or trace. Now people say, where's the hard evidence? There are metal samples that have been studied that have isotopic anomalies that would be consistent with something originating from off the planet, and they are not out of a meteorite because they are manufactured. These exist. The question is, who's looking at that data and who's reporting it? It's a little bit like...
The real question is, where is this alien material? And can it be independently examined? One piece scientifically authenticated could settle the UFO debate once and for all. We were told that in Chile, a local gold miner had recovered some strange metal from the site of a UFO crash high in the mountains. We located Jorge Ibarra's village and the metal that is allegedly from outer space.
Everybody asking from where it came. I told them from UFO. It is because I saw when the UFO have accident over the mountain. I heard nothing more than this. And I see the lights. Same, I don't know how you say in English, many lights. That's all.
Jorge Ibarra claims he saw a spacecraft hit the top of a mountain, and that he made his way to the crash site. Once there, he says he saw pieces of metal scattered all around.
I saw many. I received 10 pieces. Okay, 10 pieces I keep into the sample bag, and I back to my home. I need to make analysis, especially I hope from London.
Initially, Georgi Ibarra said he was willing to allow a sample of his metal to be independently tested in England. Naturally, he would have to accompany it, although he had no passport. Later, he imposed restrictions on the methods of testing and asked for sums of money that made it impossible to carry out. So metal that allegedly has come from outer space remains locked away in a china cabinet in the home of a shrewd Chilean gold miner. In Russia, there was another lead to possible hard evidence that ET is here. High in the Ural Mountains, in a remote area that few foreigners have visited, a group of government geologists apparently discovered some unusual spirals that Russian UFO believers are convinced are of extraterrestrial origin.
Well, the first findings of the spirals were done in 1991 when a state expedition was sent to Ural Mountains to find gold. They're investigating soil, they're making holes and many different things. So during this investigation, just when they washed out the soil, they noticed strange metallic spirals. Some of them were like a human hair in size, with a core inside. Some of them were without core or just core. Some of them were pretty big, approximately 3 centimeters long. But they took them just as a technological pollution. The following expedition that were on 1992 and 1993, again, in a different places, different locations, they found the same type of spirals. I decided to make my own expedition there, and I did it on 1995. We came there exactly to the area where this state expedition were looking for gold, and we have visited that spots. We just took the samples of the soil, washed them out, and we found these spirals. During our investigation, we tried to have a very close look on all possible theories about it.
Spiral samples were taken back to the Institute of Geology in Moscow for detailed examination by scientists there. One of them had been on site in the Ural Mountains when the spirals were found.
There are several points which, at least for the moment, we cannot explain exactly. First, the spirals are distributed over a very wide area. We know that the Ural Mountain region is like a large rubbish dump. There's a lot of industrial pollution. When we went looking specifically for spirals, we tried to make sure our experiment was not contaminated by any other materials.
All the samples that were found in the previous years too, they were taken out from the depths between 2 and 12 meters deep, which also can give us an idea about the approximate age of the spirals.
When we washed out the soil sample, it was from at least 6 meters below the surface, and we were careful. Based on this, the deposits in the quarry that the spirals came from have been dated to something in the order of 80 to 100,000 years old. We all the experts agreed that the spirals were not organic, but manufactured, which begs the question, are these spirals from our civilization or some other? That remains an open question. Sometimes we lean in one direction, and then we go in the other.
Valery Uvarov agreed that we could take some of the Russian spirals to Britain for an independent analysis. Meanwhile, in America, there was news of another source of alleged extraterrestrial material.
No one seems to know what the function is, and no one has been able to explain this wavy pattern. And we have done tests in strong electrostatic fields in which There is this odd movement side to side.
Linda Howe is a science journalist and a radio broadcaster. In 1996, she received from an anonymous listener a mysterious package containing some odd material. An accompanying letter explained how it had come to be in the possession of the donor.
His grandfather had died in 1974 and had left a diary in which he says he had gone to a crash of a wedge-shaped vehicle in New Mexico in the 1940s. And metal samples had been gathered by this grandfather that he says it was extraterrestrial.
The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio for further...
Once again, Roswell, a story that is so much at the heart of UFO mythology.
Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico.
And now some strange metal that may or may not have come from a crashed alien spacecraft that no one can prove ever existed. But none of it matters if the metal turns out to be manufactured and not of this earth.
Everybody who's looked at it says it's been structured by someone for some reason. We just don't know who or why.
We brought some of Linda Howe's crash site metal and samples of the Russian spirals back to England, to the prestigious laboratories of AEA Technology at Harwell. Dr. Alison Crossley, one of AEA's leading scientists, joined forces with Dr. Keith Rogers of Cranfield University to conduct the tests.
It's predominantly magnesium, and it does have layers, which very, very thin layers, which do have bismuth in them.
It's not just a single sheet of material, it's built up from several layers. And each layer is slightly different than the previous layer, which makes it quite interesting and quite deliberate manufacturing.
We've come across magnesium in combination with the other elements that were detected, like bismuth. But in that layered form, I wouldn't know why it was made like that.
This combination of magnesium and bismuth is not commonly found in general manufacturing processes, so it's a fairly specialised application, whatever it's been used for. But to be honest, I wouldn't like to hazard a guess.
Right from the very beginning of my research as a science reporter, my expectation was that within a very short period of time I would find the person or the industry that worked with this material had made this layered material, and I would come up with some explanation, yes, this is used in to do X.
Linda Howe had already asked some of America's leading manufacturers of exotic alloys if they knew of this strange magnesium bismuth material.
Do you know what this is?
I'll tell you, I haven't the slightest idea. I frankly would see if you can get in touch with the metallurgist at Sandia National Laboratories.
Boy, that's a weird one.
Yeah. And you're asking me if I know what this is, or what? Yeah. I have no idea what it... I mean, I could make some wild guesses, but I really don't know.
The world's largest producer of magnesium is Dow, D-O-W Chemical.
We don't do anything like that here within the Dow Chemical Company.
I haven't been able to find a single person anywhere who has any knowledge about working with bismuth and magnesium zinc in these micron layers, or has a clue what it's supposed to do.
But is it from an alien spacecraft?
I think it couldn't have come from outer space, because I don't think it would have survived entry into the atmosphere.
Because of its structural integrity and the form that we see it, it really wouldn't lend itself very well to a structural material, for example, because it would fall apart.
Magnesium melts at a very low temperature, so I don't think it could have, I don't think it's ever been out off the Earth.
When it comes to this question of how do you prove an extraterrestrial origin on anything, the one most common, probably, most common hypothesis is if you can come up with an isotopic ratio in elements that we can't find anywhere on the Earth, then you have something that is extraterrestrial.
The isotopic composition is really very similar to that you would expect from any piece of magnesium, for example, or any piece of bismuth. It is fairly unambiguously of a terrestrial origin.
Terrestrial and manufactured, but so far no one knows by whom and for what purpose. What about the Russian spirals that geologists found in the Ural Mountains and the UFO believers think could be 100,000 years old?
The spirals looked very pretty. They were filaments round a core. The filament was tungsten metal and the core was molybdenum. They actually looked to us like light bulb filaments. They did have the same structure that a light bulb filament would have. But there was a lot of metallic debris with the spirals. We found osmium and iridium, commonly found in pen nibs actually. I think they could well be scrap material that had been dumped there.
It's not impossible. The Ural Mountains region is known to be an area of top-secret industries, with factories hidden among its valleys. But Russian ufologists know this well. The mystery is that they still believe that the filament lookalikes found there predate our civilization. It seems that reliable eyewitnesses and pictures are the hardest evidence we may have for UFOs. The extraordinary pictures which this East Anglian photographer has recently taken have never been shown on television. If they pass professional scrutiny, they might support the argument that ET is here.